for our
Sorry.
workforce education and business subcommittee for this year of Jobs First. Wonderful to see you all. Um, my name is Andrew Gardner. I am consulting with Sierra Business Council to facilitate meetings and do outreach and work on the strategic plan for the Sierra Jobs First initiative with a great team of people there, and it's been great work. Is there anybody here today who has not been to the meeting or this is fairly new and would like to introduce themselves? I don't, there were a couple of names I saw that maybe I had seen before. I don't want to go through and spend too much time going through doing 20 introductions, but if there's somebody here that is kind of new to the initiative and new to the committee, please let us know and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'll jump in. My name's Barry Simpson. I'm the Inyo County Superintendent of Schools, and I've been on a few of the meetings, but not a ton. So I'll just introduce myself that way.
Barry, thank you so much for being here. I will say some feedback and some of our conversation is that we don't have a lot of representation from the K-12 system. So I really appreciate your participation today. That's great. I think you'll find a lot of benefit and a lot of advantages to your school district out there with all this work. Anyone else? So, Eric, can you pull up a quick agenda and just we're gonna kind of review the agenda here.
Oh,
We have yeah,
there we go.
okay. So what we want to do today is kind of do a quick recap of the timeline and the strategic plan and where we are. Our last big kind of milestone, if you will, was the North Lake Tahoe 2-day strategic planning workshop um, in Kings Beach, and we had a full day and a half day of work developing draft strategies and looking at all the work and a really great collaboration around that. We want to talk about our community-based organizational workshops that have been taking place over the course of May. We have a couple more still to go here in the early days of June. And then the bulk of our work will be, we have a collaboration document. I think I shared that with all of you. And we will probably, it looks like we'll probably break out into 2 breakout groups. And then each breakout group can, led by one of our Sierra Jobs First leaders here on the team, will document and take the notes on that conversation in the fields on the document, and then we'll talk about where we go from here throughout the summer. And so before we jump into the PowerPoint and start looking at some of the strategic planning process and the timeline, I always like to find out what's going on out there across our region. So if I could have a couple people volunteer about the work you're doing out there and maybe share a celebration or a success story of things happening in your world or county.
I guess I'll go first.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. It was great having you out at the Motherlode Fairgrounds, and we had a very good presentation by James Henson, and not as big a turnout as I was hoping, but you know, it wasn't zero, so so I thought that was good, and I think that's really kind of like the update since our last meeting for our team in Sonora, Tuolumne. I don't see anyone. Oh, wait, Robbie's joined us, so I was going to see if he maybe had some words to share, but we did have that public event, so that was good, and that
Awesome.
was held in conjunction with our volunteer fair, which was well received as well. And
I was recruiting people when they were walking out of the volunteer fair. I was like, come on in here and give us a little feedback. So
right. Yeah. So, and I did too. And I actually ran out and I got our local media and had them bring them in and put us on the cameras. So I don't know if we'll get some additional buzz from that effort, our local television station. Anyway. Thanks.
thank you, Tom. So that's Tuolumne County. Let's see, do we have any representatives from Calaveras County? Calaveras represented? How about Mariposa? Anybody from Mariposa? Any updates from Mariposa? How about Inyo? Anybody from Inyo? Updates from Inyo County? Kim?
Yeah, I've got a
Oh,
couple of updates. I've been working with one of the local tribes, Lauren Joseph, and then his daughter, Kaylee, and they would like to have a list of the other tribal members, up and down the valley, so they could see how all this is fitting in with all of the tribes.
that's great, Doug. We really appreciate that outreach. And please feel free to, when you are meeting with those people, to send someone a note and we can, certainly support that and celebrate that. That's really great collaboration and outreach. Appreciate the work. Kim, I saw you were getting ready to jump in.
It's all good. I can kind of tag along with what Doug said. We have a new Native American Student Success Program that Saracoso, we were granted a big grant to help students for our entire service area, from Colville all the way to Ridgecrest to Tehachapi. So, if you have Native American students that are interested in participating in education, we can help them with tuition, books, ed plans, career planning, all that good stuff. We're going to be partnering with all the liaisons, Native American liaisons in the local high schools, so that, we want to make sure we reach everybody we can. So that's cool. So we'll have that for the next year or so. And the other thing we have that's really, we're excited about is we have an outdoor rec certificate and degree starting in spring of 2025. So we're super excited to get that off the ground, and we'll start offering classes spring of 25. So I think that's about what we got. We also have, I know Barry is part of this too. We got some K through 16 grant funding to, 4 of our local high schools. I believe were awarded. 2 are doing health careers, 2 are doing education. So we're working closely with Lone Pine, Bishop High School, Big Pine, and Mammoth.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it. Let's see. That was Inyo. How about Mono County? Any celebrations for Mono County? No Mono. Alpine. We have anybody here from Alpine? Alpine is we're going to have our community-based organization meeting in Alpine on Monday at the Desolation Hotel up off Highway 80. Is that Highway 89, I think, in Hope Valley. So I'll be up there, and I think Magnolia will be there. So we're looking forward to engaging Alpine County leaders. And then last but not least, anybody from Amador would like to share an update? Hi, Karen.
Dickerson, Amador College Connect, and we also got 2 pathway grants that we're working with the high school district on education, and we're going to work on getting ready for the new credential program that's coming out for pre-K through 3rd grade. And we'll have student interns as well, working in the various resource connection preschools. And then we are working on the computer technology and engineering grant, and we're hoping to finalize our MOU with a regional partner. And then we did have a very successful, I thought, community community conversation in Amador. We had about 25 people come, and our local high school students in the culinary program prepared a wonderful meal for us. And we had a lot of representation from various agencies, the Chamber of Commerce, the school district, our business partners and other things. So it was a really good conversation.
Great, thank you, Karen. And I appreciate that, Karen. I'm from Amador too, and me and Karen and I think John Tillman is on the call. We all are together quite a bit talking about all this work. So thank you for representing. Okay, well, is there anything else? I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. If there's another celebration out there, maybe if I missed you somehow, anything to share? Okay, well, Eric, if you can go to, we're going to kind of breeze through a PowerPoint. I don't want to spend all of our time in a PowerPoint, but we're going to kind of do a quick recap here. Excuse me. And kind of talk about where we are in the planning process. So a lot of this information, I don't think it should be new to anybody. This has all been kind of in all the documents and the emails. So we are currently in the planning phase. We did the part one, the regional summary report, 400-page document of that was kind of all the legwork, the research, the foundational data. And so from that, during the course of 2024, is the taking all of that, working with our subcommittees and our HRTC, the council, the tribal roundtables, and kind of getting all that into a strategic plan. And so Sierra Business Council is taking all that information, taking all the feedback from the community-based organizations, and we're condensing, refining, manipulating, adjusting, trying to get it into a really great document that is due to the state of California on August 31st. And so it is very much in draft form, and we were kind of laughing a little bit before the meeting of every time I look at it, it seems like it's a different document, but that's a good thing because that shows that we are, listening to people and we're going to the meetings and we come back to that document and we keep refining it because it's the really important piece is that for all of us, we want all the voices to be heard and we want that document to represent all of our regions and our communities. So that's where we are right now. So there's another way to look at it here. We are currently in the input, community, and industry sector workshop phase, kind of halfway up there in the pyramid. And so, as I said, we just finished our community-based organization meetings. We have a couple more to go. And then we're going to move into industry sector workshops. So we have the 5 priority industry sectors. Ag and ranching, sustainable tourism and recreation, natural and working lands, energy and energy resilience, and community health. And so over the course of June, we're going to be having those meetings. So I'm sure you will be getting, or you'll see those meeting dates scheduled. So that is when the industry leaders in the region can kind of take a really hard look from their perspective at how they can kind of fine tune that with that expertise, kind of look at it. I think the question was, when is this all due? It is due on August 31st. But what Sierra Business Council would like to do is make sure that it is in pretty much a full draft form by July something. And so there is a 3-week community feedback period. So all of you and everybody else who's been involved in the process will have an opportunity to look at that before it goes to the state for the official submission. I think that was a really important piece to all this. So whatever it gets done, it's going to be done about 3 weeks before it goes to the state. So everybody has a chance to look at that. So that will be throughout the course of August, most of August. Any questions on the framework or where we're at in the process?
There was a question from Jenny in the chat about deadline for project ideas to be contributed to the strategic plan. Project ideas can be submitted through the tracker, but Andrew, are you aware of in what form project ideas will be included in the strategic plan?
I am not aware of how the specific projects go in there. I don't believe that there is, when I looked at the outline for the strategic plan, I don't think that specific like shovel-ready projects are written in there. I think what those projects there's over 100 of them in the tracker now are all aligned to the strategies, right? So we have a strategy for workforce development in agriculture, and then the projects would be how do we create a workforce and create an education program, right, to support students in that industry. I think I saw Erica, maybe if they had more information or a different feedback on that.
Andrew, will the industry sector workshops be, can we participate in those through Zoom?
Yes, those are all going to be virtual. So they won't be in person. So we want to make sure that those are region wide. They're not going to be like by county like what we were doing. And so we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to engage in those industry sector workshops. So those will all be virtual.
Okay, and another follow-up question on the Catalyst program. Are those necessarily all shovel ready, or are there, I mean, Catalyst might be, some of it might be funding for research to be done to complete a project which is, crudely stated in the, it's been crudely stated so far, but a lot more detail needs to be worked out.
Yeah. And I think that's the work of the project idea team, the other subcommittee. And so they are going to be kind of going through those. We did a lot of that work in April and in North Lake Tahoe. And so with the Catalyst funding, so there's 9 million there for the projects. And so what happens is once those projects kind of get cleaned up and they're ready to go, the council then the High Road, the Sierra Job Force Council, that what used to be called the HRTC, will then begin kind of reviewing those and voting on which projects they want to move forward for the Catalyst. And that will all start taking place in September.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So Erica Harvey, our fearless leader, Catalyst projects are either in the, I missed that. In the
They're either
pre-development or the last mile. Yeah.
Yeah. So John, the idea with Catalyst is that it doesn't necessarily need to be shovel ready because we want to build capacity. So the dollars should be going toward capacity building.
Okay, thank you.
So does that, just to be clear, is there an opportunity to bring a project forward still, or is that timeline passed?
Oh, no, there's plenty of time. We
Okay.
haven't, no, the official RFP we're hoping will open September 1st after we've submitted the strategic plan on August 30th. So the idea is that we finish the strategic planning phase and then we're going to roll right into the Catalyst project identification phase. Right now, we've just been collecting ideas. So if you guys keep hearing about that project ideation tracker, it's just, okay, you've got ideas, let's put them someplace, and then let's start using that as data to help inform the strategic plan process. Because it's been really helpful to see where people would like to prioritize dollars. But no, you've got plenty of time to submit projects, and we're gonna have workshops as well. So I think we have it on our calendar, should be on our website, but Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. We've got some time blocks for July and then 2 time blocks in August to have like actual sit down workshops where we're gonna have like, at least what we're envisioning anyway, like all the workforce development projects that fall under forestry will come to a table and see if there's opportunity for collaboration and like where can we like leverage off of each other, so we're not just funding like all of these random kind of one-off. We want to maximize our impact. That's the idea.
Okay,
So
so
everyone,
if we have ideas, like I've been kind of hesitant to put my ideas in because I wanted to talk to somebody at SBC about them first, because they're sort of like coordination ideas. So if we have those ideas, it's best to just get them in, and then you guys are going to facilitate a time for everybody to talk about them so that we can be efficient. That's great.
yes, and make sure that, you know, there's like, who is going to be the grant applicant? Who's going to be the co-applicant? Like, who's writing the grant? Like, do you need technical assistance? Like, because there are people that are coming to the table that are like, oh, I have to have a budget and a grant writer. So we want to make sure that these projects are going to be successful.
With the tracker right now, can we go on there and actually see what projects have been submitted?
I believe if it's not public, we can send it. We've sent it to multiple people that have asked just to see what's been submitted so far.
Okay, yeah,
and
really interesting.
it's been organized. So in the last couple months, we've been like slowly aggregating, matchmaking, kind of highlighting like, okay, well, this is a great idea, but how does it impact disinvested communities?
Okay, great. Thank you.
So if we have submitted an idea, do we now need to follow up as individuals with an RFP when that process opens?
Yes, yes. So the process should be open about 2 months. So there'll be plenty of time. But like I said, the idea is that we don't want anyone to be caught off guard or feel like they're running behind. So we should already know before the RFP opens what the primary applications are expected. And then the idea is that you have 2 months to kind of do some fine tuning if there's any last minute, like, you know, needs. And then there's going to be a month or 2 of vetting and putting into buckets. And then the council will vote on the projects in buckets. And it's all, that process is all outlined on our website. I think Kara dropped the link in the chat. So you can, there's some visuals that we've included that you can check out.
Erica, this is Tom. A quick question on that process. It's good. We started that up and then kind of throttled it back, and then now it sounds like we're kind of moving forward with collecting ideas. We have some places that have a couple of ideas and others that have hundreds of ideas. And so I'm just wondering if there is a requirement or a suggestion that you know, that we subdivide ourselves and do some local prioritization and then come up with like our top 20 or something like that. If that would be helpful or not. I don't know what the process is that you're moving forward from what we have now, which is sort of an uneven distribution.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. I know there's a lot of projects that came forward from Tuolumne County. So I would say yes, leverage the county cohort meetings to kind of prioritize within the county what you think is most important. But with that being said, keep in mind, we are developing a rubric with the project ID subcommittee. And so the idea is that you will get more points on a project application if it covers multiple counties, because we want this to be regional. So we don't want like 7 counties coming forward with 7 projects, like 1 in each county. It's really, you know, can we get 4 or 5 counties to come together, or ideally 7, to have like one massive like regional project that's gonna, you know, bring a positive benefit to everyone to a certain extent.
That's great. A follow-on question. So there was a period where we were being waived off of infrastructure related projects. And but yet one of our industry segments is energy, which is infrastructure. And so I had actually sent an email off to Steve asking for input relative to broadband. And that's something that might be important for all of our counties in the region. Is broadband and broadband related projects, is that back on the table or is it off the table?
No, broadband's always been off just because there's so much money coming down from the state for broadband. I mean, I think RCRC's last award was like 80 million for broadband or something. I mean, there's just so much money out there. I think if there was a need for capacity building to support that, as long as it was coming from like our energy sector or you know, recreation and tourism, you know, something like that, I think that we could probably make that work. But yeah, we kind of want to stay away from broadband, just for this specific catalyst bucket of funds. But
Okay.
keep in mind, all that is still going into the strategic plan because it's critical for economic development.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
What about if,
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Les.
oh, okay, we're thinking about through the SBDC, because we found not only in your area, but also I serve 2 areas, right? The North Valley Thrive and this area. And it seems like both areas needs, you know, child daycare, right? Does it make sense to do a joint for both surf regions? Does that make sense? You talked
Yeah.
about across counties, right? Well, I'd like to do it across 2 surf regions, right? And build out this program that, you know, there's continuity between the 2 areas since we're so closely tied together.
Yes, no, that's definitely an option. And that's actually something that the state would like to see. Just because, you know, yes, we have our regions, but our region to region also, we also speak to each other. So
Okay,
they would like to see some sort of collaboration there. I know, is it the North Valley?
it's North Valley's Thrive, I think is
Yeah.
what, yeah, right?
Yes, I think they were also working on, they wanted to potentially partner with us on like the clean energy sector, because they're looking for some you know, electric, you know, vehicle infrastructure up and
Oh,
down, you know, that
okay.
west slope. So yeah, it's definitely been a conversation. It just hasn't been executed on.
Okay, because I know from the SBDC standpoint for our Northern California region, we're looking to partner, right? So maybe we can bring it across our whole Northern California network, and then we can show that we play well together, right?
Definitely.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I always think of it as casting a net. So, you know, these projects, how far your net can cast and how many people can be reached. It's just kind of how my brain kind of thinks about it, right? So, with our K-16 grants in Amador, what we wanted to do was cast our net throughout Calaveras and Alpine too, which made our proposal a lot stronger because now we're not just Amador County, but we're reaching 3 different counties in the region. So, just a way to think about it. Great, awesome questions. Anybody else on kind of where we're at and clarifications?
Oh, yeah, yes, I do have another question.
Yeah, John.
On the implementation funding, I don't know if you want to go there yet or not. There
That's
is
what you're asking.
there's $273 million, and then beside that it says for the state. It says state, so that is for the whole state.
Correct.
Okay, now, to what extent, and I don't know if anybody can answer this question, to what extent will population density bear on the distribution of those funds?
That's a great question. I would have to defer to somebody else who works more closely with the state. Eric?
State has very intentionally not provided any sort of description of that selection process yet. It's fair to say that the urban denser regions are clamoring for population density to be taken into account. I don't think my hunch is that the state will not officially say that it will, but also that it will inevitably play some part in their decision-making process. In the state's defense, they also are keenly aware of regions like ours, and our situation is one of the reasons the Catalyst project, the Catalyst phase was created in the first place. So there are voices at the state team level that want to make sure resources go to the rural regions. So
Okay.
all of that is vague, but that's what I can say right now.
Eric,
Okay,
if I could
you.
offer, I'm sorry, if I could offer an input to that process, if there is one. If we looked at the needs based on average income, that might be a better methodology for a fair distribution as opposed to density. If it's density, we're all going to receive about $20. That'll be it. So, frankly, right? So, it's kind of the way the vote goes too. So, but in any case, yeah, if we look at it from an income basis, that might be a helpful distribution.
Another criteria might be educational need.
And state will be putting out draft criteria for their implementation RFP phases. And when that comes out, SBC will be circulating it and we'll be putting together a comment letter. Erica, what were we going to run that by? We want to run that by the whole collaborative, right? Or
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna have Project ID kind of give their final word next week and then send it out and give a week for everyone to have kind of like a final comment. But that's essentially what the letter is including. John, it's yeah, we keep advocating for them not to use any sort of population density requirement.
Actually, having some ideas as to what the state is planning to do in that area might inform our project selection and prioritization.
So that, yeah, no, Tom,
Yes.
that's the same criteria that we handed out at the North Lake Tahoe meeting. There was that 1-page criteria. That's currently the draft criteria for Catalyst and for implementation. So they told us to pretty much take that as the final word for Catalyst, even though they called it a draft. They're like, yeah, it's pretty much not going to change. But for implementation, there is going to be a public comment period. We haven't heard any update on that. That's why we have a letter that's drafted. It's ready. We just kind of want everyone's final input before we send it off. But that is the starting point. So there was like 6 or so bullets on impacts to disinvested communities. There was like 4 or 5 bullets for workforce economic development. And then there were the climate bullets. And actually, if someone, Eric or Kara, if you have it handy, we could reshare it with the group. Because that's pretty much what we know as of right now. And it's a pretty good starting point.
Awesome, thank you. I want to go back to the PowerPoint. There was another slide I wanted to share to kind of do as a segue into our active collaboration today. So Eric, if you could pull that up. And
sorry, which slide?
it was the one we were talking about that we had never seen before.
Got it. One.
Perfect. Okay. So this, we were kind of joking again that, every time we kind of look at some of these things, it's like, oh, this is a new document or a new visual. But I thought this is a pretty good kind of visual for us to look at to kind of lead us into our work. So you can see that, we have, it's a workforce, business and education, right? So our goal is to look at the workforce development stuff and how we can integrate, incorporate, and leverage, right, what we're doing across our region in those areas to ultimately get our desired outcomes, which is increased number of jobs, prioritize investment in disinvested communities, ready our communities for natural disasters, and grow opportunities for the emerging workforce. So those have been detailed in the highlights booklet that has been going out. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, I believe I put the link to that in the email I sent last night. And so when you think about like everything we're trying to do, the project teams and the governance team and the work-based business and education team, and then the council, right? These are everything that we're trying to do. So the priority industry sectors, we have the 5: community healthcare, recreation, tourism, natural and working lands, clean energy and energy resilience, and ag and food systems. And then we have these kind of 5 core opportunities that have been identified in our work: workforce and education. We look at physical infrastructure, social services and infrastructure, housing and placemaking, and I always forget the last one. There was another one in there. But what we want to do today is really dive into the current version of the draft strategies that are sitting in a document that is constantly being updated. It's a living document that will ultimately go to the state in August. And so Eric, if you could pull that document up and we can all kind of run through this real quick, and then I'll tell you how we're gonna break out and do this. Great. So this document lays out all of the strategies, the draft strategies under workforce development, career readiness. So enhance alignment between education and industry to support workforce needs. So how do we do that, right? And that's what we all want to talk about. Here's some of the tactics. Here's some of the implementation partners. And then the second strategy, if you can scroll down a little bit, Eric, expand workforce training opportunities to create high quality jobs. And these are, and you've probably seen these on the posters and in other areas. We have the tactics in our implementation partners. Strategy 3, promote vocational education and apprenticeships to provide non-degree opportunities. Number 4, support small business development to grow entrepreneurial opportunities. Number 5, address systemic barriers to promote inclusivity. Inclusiveness, is that a word? I don't know. Okay.
Inclusivity.
And then finally, strategy 6 is go up a little bit, Eric. I can't read that.
Sorry.
There we go. Improve access to resources to assist disinvested communities. So under the workforce development and career readiness in our strategic plan, those are the draft strategies to date. The feedback from the summary report, the Tahoe 2-day workshop, and then the community-based organization events that were taking place in May. So that is where it stands. So what I would like to do today then is I think we got a nice group here. If we could break off into 2 subgroups or breakout rooms, and Erica will do that for us. And then everybody has access to that document. So in one of the, if somebody can kind of take the lead on putting notes, you'll see the fields under each of those strategies. And so have a conversation. What needs to be added? I think where we're kind of at now is trying to make it really specific. That's been a lot of the feedback, as some of these draft strategies are pretty broad. So how can we tighten them up? How can we look for more specific language to make this a really strong strategic plan? So we're going to take about, let's see, we got about 45 minutes until the meeting's over. So let's take about a half hour, and this will be kind of free form collaboration. There's no timer going. We're just going to kind of break out into two different groups, and you could start at strategy one. Actually, one group wants to start at the top and one group wants to start at the bottom, and then we can work our way to the middle and through it. I think that would probably be best.
So I've got you leading one room, Andrew, and I've got myself in another. Let's say I'll start at the bottom.
Perfect.
And so
Perfect.
I'm about to open the rooms. You should receive a prompt on your screen asking you to join either room 1 or room 2. So.
And then we'll all come back here about 11:15. Does that sound good? Eric?
That sounds good. Thanks.
Great.
Have you, does anyone, is anyone missing an alert asking them to join a breakout room?
Could you resend the breakout invitation, because I accidentally okay. I'll just do
Did that
this.
work? Hello. Sorry, there were some tech troubles in the main room. Welcome everyone to breakout room 2. I'm resharing my screen. Folks see strategy 6.
Yeah, we see strategy 6.
Okay. So, improve access to resources to assist disinvested communities. Tactics include establish satellite sites equipped with necessary resources like computers, enrollment assistance, financial aid support, and tutoring services to facilitate access to education and training. Invest in a robust financial aid system to increase access to programs and training opportunities for individuals in the region. Implementation partners include educational institutions, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, community-based organizations, and workforce development boards. So again, a lot of this language may look familiar to you either from the April workshops or previous meetings. And although now we've tried to actually coalesce it into a formal strategy for a strategic plan. So again, the question is, do you feel this is appropriate? Should it be made more specific? Did we accidentally
Can I ask a question, Eric?
Partner?
Can I ask a question, Eric?
Yep.
Are we just starting on strategy 6, or are we going to start at the top?
Andrew's starting at the top with strategy 1, and we're starting down here, and we're gonna
okay, cool.
work our way towards the middle. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
So a disinvested community is sort of on a graduating scale. So are we, would it be helpful to identify the most disadvantaged community and then work up from there so that we prioritize the most disadvantaged first? And if that's the case, an example that's been brought up numerous times has been like physical access to healthy foods. Like a store where a grocery store,
Right.
or access to, a gas station, or access to schools. And of course, broadband is a huge problem here, but that's all, we've already been waived off on that. So, but
Right.
I'll defer to Motherlode job training and maybe some of the schools, the educational infrastructure, to talk about how to deliver educational services and supports to the most disadvantaged, which would be, in my mind, are remote, very remote locations.
So very quickly on your point, there are other core issue sections of the plan that deal with things like food access and physical infrastructure. This section is meant to be very targeted at education and workforce development. So
minor detail, but education spelled wrong. You have an education at the top header.
in the actual document title, there we go.
Oh,
There.
Good catch.
Yeah, 4.5 years of college.
with respect to educational access, I think the Amador College Connect has a reasonably good model. It does require, though, that you have good broadband connectivity, and you have to establish relationships with community colleges or universities, which we have done. One problem that I see with that is, in comparison to some of the counties, Amador County is physically a smaller county. If you look at, I think it's Inyo, even if you had satellite campuses, you'd have to have multiple ones in order to provide access across the county.
The good news is we already have access. We have pretty much, Saracoso is Inyo and Mono County. And actually beyond that, we're Ridgecrest, Tehachapi, and beyond. So, but what we're doing is Barry Simpson, he's the superintendent for Inyo. He's getting a grant to put Zoom rooms in every single one of his high schools that will connect directly to Saracoso. The other thing I've been working with is with his IT person. Death Valley finally came online. They have not had internet access for a long time. And they do now because they use Starlink.
Yes.
So, that is how we're addressing our very remote areas that don't have necessarily, Saracoso is not going to put, Saracoso in Lone Pine, Big Pine, Benton, all that. So you're right. You do need to have access to internet that is reliable. Zoom has been really good for us as far as it's incredibly stable. We used to have ITV, which was not great. So it's like we have dedicated ourselves to Zoom. And we have 2 Zoom rooms that are at the Bishop campus, 2 that are at the Mammoth campus. Those are directly connected. So we are offering, for our college students, we're offering classes between the sites. And our next step is to offer that to our high schools. The other thing we've been doing that other schools can start doing is early college. And we have already polled every single one of our 11 high schools to who in your high school has a master's degree. And then we offer dual enrollment classes, which is, basically a college level class on their actual high school. So like, for example, Lone Pine has English 101, 102, transfer level math, they're adding business this semester, and they have health science. So that's how we are like kind of addressing that whole, how do you have a satellite site? It's like, well, you link up to your community college, and you have to have a really good relationship with every single one of your high schools.
Right. And then do you have counseling and enrollment services?
Oh, yeah.
that are through the like through Zoom where you can help students?
We go. I send my counseling team to every single high school twice a year around enrollment time so that they can do career counseling. They can get them enrolled, for concurrent dual enrollment, but then we can also do senior outreach to get them connected, for that. We've done that for a long time. That's how you actually develop your relationships, is actually getting in the car and going even if it's 1 or 2 students, it's worth meeting with them in person. So the only time we have not done that obviously was during COVID. So then we did it Zoom. So, but yeah, we do have our enrollment team and our counseling advising team go. I go as well as we also have a director of dual enrollment that we every single semester see if anything's changed at that high school. Do they have more instructors that can teach dual enrollment?
Great.
Yeah, from the SBDC standpoint, we're finding that in-person workshops seem to work very well. We just recently did a series on getting certified, right? Especially with AB 2019, where the state's saying 25% participation in disadvantaged women-owned veteran business, small businesses. And what we're doing is we're actually having workshops where 30 people with their laptops. We're literally walking them through the process of getting certified. Recently in Stockton, we had, I think, 50 people go through our course. 44 got certifications. I think 8 of them SBA 8As, which is like the holy grail of certifications. 4 of them actually got contracts. And this is only within a 4-month period. We also ran a program in Calaveras County too, where they had 25 people through our MBDA program. And yeah, we're finding in person where we can actually help them live get these certifications. It's huge, and especially for economic impact, right? Especially when we're talking small disadvantaged businesses, getting them certified as, again, women-owned, veteran-owned, small business. It's huge, and there's a lot of contracts out there that are looking specifically for disadvantaged businesses.
Yeah, and I mean, you need to beyond your high school kids.
Right.
We definitely go into these communities and ask, the counselors at those high schools. It's like, well, what industries are here and who needs, training. So we've, developed a lot of things like medical assisting down, mostly in Tehachapi right now, and Bakersfield. We actually stole enrollment from Bakersfield because they didn't have medical assisting. I'm going to steal Bakersfield College's agriculture because they have animal science and all that kind of stuff that I could use in Lone Pine and Big Pine and Bishop. So, we're kind of in the end stages of that, putting that, but, going back, it's like you have got to establish, kind of a relationship with your schools and your communities in person before you can pop on the screen and say, hey, how's it going? And check back with them. So, we've been doing that for a decade, and it's proven to be very successful. We have a very robust online program that, we've been around since dial-up days, providing online instruction. So we're just barely starting to plateau compared to other community colleges in the state.
I have a follow-up on this, but JT has his hand up, so I'll wait for JT here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just have one note to add on to here. Obviously the strategy is improve access to resources to assist disinvested communities. I think a potential addition on there is, as far as a tactic, is improving the actual physical access through transit and transportation to actually get people to these satellite sites. You know, specifically as we look into very remote communities where satellite sites, there still might be some sort of delta that they'll need to get themselves to, that improving that physical transit could be beneficial, especially in disinvested communities where a lot of folks do have issues with transportation from one part of the community to the other. And that's my comment.
Great. James or Alex?
Yeah. So I think that there's a secondary aspect to this strategy that's going to add additional tactics. And so the other side of that is it's not just improve access to resources. I think that it should also be, and this is something that's came from some of the community feedback sessions, it is also improve knowledge of the programs and services, right? So the thing about it is that you can improve the access, but if people don't know that they can access this resource, if it's not marketed well, and we're not reaching the folks that we're trying to target with these, the strategy is not helpful, right? Like, so like if we take into consideration something like motherhood job training services, or we take into consideration something like Amador College Connect, sometimes they refer to these programs as the best kept secret in X region. And so it's changing the language to not just improve access, but improve knowledge of. And then some of those tactics can be marketing strategies, but also outreach efforts of like with what Kim was saying, where programs are going to the targeted populations and promoting those services. And so I think that those should be tactics that are included as well.
Right. Okay.
Totally agree.
That is a super good point, because we're not allowed as a community college to really spend a lot of money on marketing and swag and stuff like that. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Question
Yeah.
on like computers and financial aid support. Like, should we specify financial aid support in any way? Like, do we need financial aid programs that target specifically providing notebooks for people, computer notebooks for people? Are there broad bodies of possible students who can't engage because, like Les, they don't have a laptop to bring to a workshop or to Saracoso?
You know, that's interesting because we had received a grant through the city of Stockton to do these workshops. And part of that grant is, we were going to purchase 15 laptops to be gifted to businesses that, didn't have that technology, right, to be able to access the internet and stuff. We found that most people that are in business, they had laptops, right? So we were saying, can we just take that money for the laptops and just put it into technical assistance? So I think, again, it depends, because I have an intern in here right now that's helping us. She was using her iPad, so she could use a laptop. So, again, it depends on what stage they're in, right? If they're students, if education, they may not. But if they're legitimate business people, they probably do have access to some form of technology. And then another point is, there's one thing to gain the knowledge. The other thing that's always missing is, and for us, right, it's easy for people that, well, not easy, but people get certified, right, as a women-owned or minority-owned business. But just because they have that certification doesn't mean that they're actually getting the bids. So part of the process is, getting them certified, but also introducing them to procurement people, right? That once they're certified, these are the people you need to contact, right? And then there's the whole access to capital component, right? Well, how do we get them that funding? So it's not just one particular thing. I think it's a whole ecosystem that we educate, we provide the access to capital, and then we also provide them, if we educate them on, how to be a programmer, let's introduce them to companies that hire programmers, right? So they have that job opportunity. So I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's provide a whole ecosystem to help that individual or business, grow.
I think I'd like to amplify that. I personally believe that it's better to invest in the ecosystem rather than specifically in individuals as a prioritization. Not to say that they're mutually exclusive, but I would really rather see a broader opportunity to a larger group of people than targeted assistance to specific individuals. I think we could have that, but I would maybe perhaps at a lower prioritization level. That's just an input that from my perspective, but I'm like to hear other views on that.
By that, so Kim just put in chat about how they've invested in laptops and MiFis for students and they loan them out. Is that sort of what you mean? Like having
Yeah, right. So that they essentially belongs to the ecosystem. It belongs to the delivery agency or whatever, however that works, so that it's not about gifting things to individuals. It's about providing resources that can be more broadly and fairly distributed is kind of the perspective there.
Well, we found that
Yeah, go
people
ahead.
have basic needs. We have a basic needs department, and everybody's kind of different in their journey. So it's like, they may not need a computer, they may need, like a bus pass, or they might need, other things that help them, headphones or whatever. It's like, so we don't like put them in a bucket. We say, what do you need to be successful, with your classes? And then we see what resources we have to connect them to. So I think, having a basic needs department is a really good idea. The other thing I want to round back to is we also have the Eastern Sierra Foundation and Mammoth Lake Foundation. They are like community driven, buckets of money that provide scholarship for local students. So those have been really key to our student success up in Bishop and Mammoth. They do not have the same thing in our other campuses, but basically they pay for the tuition and the books and for any local student that's been in our area for at least a year. So
I like the idea of
with
providing
an academic goal.
Yeah, I like the idea of providing resources to local teams of individuals who can assess the needs and get to the level of individual needs. But at a high level, at a regional level, I think that's less efficient, I guess is what I'm kind of saying. I don't know how that plays, but I wanted to get back to this statement we've made requires broadband connectivity and provide perhaps a different and maybe useful perspective. So I'm very much centrally involved in the broadband connectivity solution set for our county. Broadband has been federal and state has excluded Starlink from the program because it's not fiber optic. I think that that actually benefits us potentially. If we make for very remote areas that have limited or no access to what we consider broadband, which is much higher throughputs than what they've ever had. And that opens up a possibility for us to be able to implement Starlink satellite SIOPs, then that could potentially be a game changer for some of these communities that are years away from being able to get effective internet, but they're only minutes away from getting that if they utilize Starlink, which has been purposefully excluded from the broadband programs that are funded. Does that make sense? So we could still identify specific communities and still provide internet connectivity. Just take the word broadband out.
Okay.
And then we're good to go.
Got it.
Okay.
I want to go to James, and then I think we should probably touch on another strategy. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on something that we had highlighted last night in our community outreach meeting is access to educational resources like metrics. That was mentioned last night in our meeting as something that could be an important educational resource. It's free, completely free, and there's a number of certification programs that are offered through that program, and it's free to the whole county region. So highlighting access and awareness of that program. I wanted to kind of tag on to what James had said, is I think awareness of existing resources is something that's lacking and needs to be developed. Also, kind of in the description of the strategy, I don't see libraries mentioned anywhere. I do see nonprofit organizations listed, but I think libraries are a great community resource that do provide high-speed broadband access or internet connectivity, as Tom was saying. So I think that's perhaps something to, you could tag team multiple initiatives through public libraries, doing community outreach, doing education, things like that as well.
Was that metrics with a capital M? Is that a program?
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Sorry for interrupting anyone if they had any more thoughts, but on strategy 5, sort of a similar theme, address systemic barriers to promote inclusivity, implement initiatives to break cultural stigma surrounding trade jobs and promoting inclusivity, especially for underrepresented and disinvested groups, create inclusive apprenticeship programs in trades, ensuring they are free from harassment and discrimination, provide support services to students to address barriers to success, including transportation, tools, clothing, housing, and incentives for success. Implementation partners include diversity and inclusion organizations, trade associations, educational institutions promoting inclusivity, advocacy groups for underrepresented communities, and government agencies promoting workforce diversity. Libraries might be another good inclusion here because they are often great communal spaces. But does anyone have any initial thoughts or questions on this here?
I was muted. I have an initial thought. I'm still trying to form in my mind the list of systemic barriers that we need to remove. What are those?
So this context, it's referring to the idea that you need a 4-year degree in order to succeed, and therefore people are less inclined to pursue trade certifications, or to just start dropping the isms, sexism. Like, are there fields where women, where the cultural consensus is that are less valued there?
I'll chime in a little bit on that and where, some of this kind of came from as I was facilitating some of these tables for the workforce education in Tahoe, and how these kind of came about and where this was brought up, right? And so the situation was that the barriers that a lot of the folks face in these rural areas, not just necessarily is it systemic, it's that it's generational. You came from a low-income family, you came from a marginalized community, and you get stuck in a cycle, right? And so from that, some of these systemic barriers, I guess you could say, is that with what Kim just said, being a first-generation college student, being from, a tribal group, being from, a family that maybe has experienced domestic violence, substance use disorder, things along those lines. So that's the types of generational or systemic barriers that someone maybe would be facing as it relates to this specific issue. And then outside of that, from all the labor market data that I have access to on the east side, there's a lot of groups who are disproportionately represented as it relates to specific career tracks or educational tracks, things along those lines. And so from that, then folks identified some tactics to make it that we could address some of those things. Does that help, Tom?
It does. What are on that last comment, James? What were some of those specifics? Like, if they live in a specific region in a specific territory, and there's a certain set of jobs that are just sort of naturally form in that space. Those are the ones they gravitate to, or are those the ones that they don't want to do because we've had 3 generations doing that and we're time to do something else? I mean, I'm trying to understand how that dynamic plays out and then what we would do about that.
Right. And so, I mean, the way that that plays out, right? I mean, let's say, let's take, for instance, the forester logging community, right? It's like your dad was a logger, so now you're a logger, and then your kids will also be loggers, right? But the thing is that even those families are like, I don't want my kid to be a logger, right? They want them to go and explore and get an education or find a different career path. We also see it a lot with the trades, right? The trades have been historically, especially for up here in the rural area, it's, white men who are taking those jobs, right? You're not seeing a lot of women or folks who maybe were disinvested or disenfranchised from the labor market, right? Untapped labor pools. So folks who are maybe just as involved, getting into some different, career pathways. And so I think that, when we're looking at some of these tactics, I mean, I wouldn't state that the systemic or generational barriers are not there. It's, I would say what tactics should also be added to help overcome that.
A recent perspective from one of our local developers was that their company is losing the let's call it tribal knowledge with a small t, right? The knowledge of the industry, that they're losing that because of the reduction in home building. And so they're having trouble finding individuals, not only that have developed the skills to work in that industry, but also don't really have a desire to work in that industry.
Right.
And so obviously we can work on the skill side of it. Maybe on the desire side of it could be compensated by, the income that you can receive. But that's a market driven thing that's going to be really, really hard to address. So that's just one example I could think of is that our regionally our lack of ability to grow, to develop, and specifically to develop housing solutions could be addressed, and then therefore that would generate potentially more work opportunity. But then it becomes, that falls on James's lap as to try to finding workforce that's willing to go and do that work. Yeah. So
I think that's a good point, because it's like we lose people all the time to housing. You're not going to recruit anybody from out of the area. There's plenty of jobs, but there's not enough housing for them to be in. So they're living in RVs and in their cars and vans and everything else, or they're just saying, nope, not for me, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, I think going back though to like things we can do to break cultural stigma, stuff like that, it goes back to that marketing piece. It's like, at a community college, I know from being a counselor for 15 years that, men make they're very good nurses. And also women are very good welders, if they have that skill set. So, showing people doing that, or having, people do testimonials, that are not a traditional, the traditional gender or the traditional type of person that does that, I think goes a long way, to let people say, I do enjoy that kind of thing and I think I'd be good at it. So, but then the other part of this is you got to look at your community's biases, the things that they do discriminate against and stuff like that. For example, we just had Eastern Sierra Pride at the Tri-County Fairgrounds. I think as an institution, putting your name on that poster that you supported them, you know, as a sponsor, and you showed up at the event and you had a booth, and all that kind of stuff goes a long way to helping people feel supported, and that sort of thing. So that's what we do, is we tend to, you know, sponsor and show up and, you know, walk the walk as far as, yes, we do include everybody.
I think that's a great point, but I think an additional tactic would be, educating some of these rural employers and businesses on the benefits of inclusivity could also be a tactic that could be carried out by education and workforce entities, as well as business councils and chambers of commerce and business associations, right? That could help to educate businesses on promoting inclusivity.
Right.
Some of these rural areas, I don't necessarily know how well that would go over. But I think that it could be a great start.
Andrew's giving us just a couple minutes here to wrap up. So are there any final thoughts here before we all come back to the main room?
I think one last thing is the info, you know, like doing info sessions between educational institutions and the workforce groups and stuff like that. You know, it goes a long way to finding out what their needs are. You know, I don't know what, you know, what positions, what jobs are needing, you know, what people are needing down the road. So definitely touching base with your local employers as an education.
My last thought on this is I think it might benefit us to focus on our tribes, our local tribes on this one. Because they've been there many generations, 10,000 years, right? So, you know, they win on the longevity number. And then I don't know, it'd be worth investigating. And James and Alex, you might have data on that, I don't know, but relative to the tribes, young people gaining traction in the broader community from a workforce standpoint.
All right, sorry, Tom, did you say young people?
Well, I'm thinking we're focused on probably on our next generation if we're going to try to solve problems.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, on the next generation. Focus on local tribe, next generation in terms of their applicability to local jobs.
Okay.
I mean, there's like 10 or 12 jobs at the casino. Other than that, you know, what are these folks doing? You know, what can we offer as a community and prepare them for that?
Okay, so I think the breakout room is about to close in just over 15 seconds. So thanks everyone. We only got through 2, but it was a great conversation. I think you'll see us all back with Andrew in just a little bit here.
Okay, well, we have about 10 minutes here, so I thought if somebody from our breakout room and the other breakout room or a couple of people could kind of share their takeaways, just some real quick kind of high level takeaways from the conversation. Then we'll go from there. Anybody from breakout room 1, my breakout room?
Need to volunteer someone.
Robin, can I call on you to share a little bit about what we talked about?
Sure. Well, so I guess I would need to see the outline again to remember the exact 3 strategies. We spent a lot of time for the first strategy, which is right. enhance alignment between education and industry. So we talked quite a bit about that there could be a disconnect between what educational institutions and agencies are providing versus what the small business actually needs. And just an example of that was, I provided an example with my own business where we would like to bring in, even free wages for, say, workability kids who are special needs kids from the local schools, but it's like we need an intermediary, like a mentoring program or case manager type program that manages those kids to help, because the local businesses don't have the capacity to do the extra work to train and coach young people, let alone young people with special needs. And so there was a lot about that. And then there was the second, let's see here, the second strategy, if you scroll down a little bit. Oh, expand the workforce training opportunities. There we kind of scratched our heads about, like, our current industries of tourism and hospitality tend to generate low wage service jobs. And so, the challenge is to bring in industries potentially like maybe some energy infrastructure or other types of manufacturing that would generate the high quality jobs. Also, we mentioned that in addition to utilizing the K-12 resources that are already in place to strengthen the adult education programs and perhaps provide financial assistance for older adults who are looking to change careers, which typically would take them into a higher paying career. So then the third, the vocational education and apprenticeships, we talked a lot about the contractors boards or the trade unions, trying to get them involved. And again, discussing the challenge of, do we use one-time funding to build, say, trade schools and then have that funding dry up later, versus providing more strength and support and equipment and tools to existing the school programs, and the difficulty of leveraging the strong workforce program because of administrative barriers in small areas. So I feel like I'm just rambling at this point.
Oh,
Did I
that's
miss
great.
anything?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that was great, Robin. Thank
Okay.
you.
Sure.
Anybody from breakout room 2?
Could you scroll down to item 5? Maybe Kim or Tom, would you like to chime in?
All right. Sounds like let me take one. So actually Kim, do you want to do number 5 and I'll do 6? Would that work?
Yes, I could do that. All right, so basically, you just go back just a smidge.
I'll have just a scoot chamber so she can see that.
Yeah. Basically, we talked about, defining kind of what the barriers were, but also, I think one of the takeaways was, you need to identify like what your biases and things are in your communities to know kind of what to bring to your industry partners to, talk about things like like first gen students, for example, are terrified to go to school. Because they haven't had somebody before them go to school. So, just identifying not only like kind of what is out there, but also identifying who your underserved people are, so that's what we were kind of focusing on. it's definitely important, from a college perspective, understanding your first gen students, understanding, like your underserved ones like Native American, we have definitely, we have like an actual equity person, for Saracoso that focuses like on our black students, Native American students, transgender, gay, lesbian, just so that we have that inclusive, atmosphere at our school and understanding of kind of their experience and challenges and all that, and giving people the resources they need to be successful in school. It can go back to Robin when you were talking about like, special needs. We have access programs. So it's important to identify your students that need those services. But it goes beyond school, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we help them in school, but then they go to work. So how do we help them go from school to work and still be supported? So I know we play that role a lot. We try to partner with industry partners to talk about, like, we would talk to you about like, hey, these are the things that you can do, to help support your folks with special needs. So that was kind of we were getting into that. Also, just marketing things like non-traditional people in jobs, like, women can be welders and men can be nurses or teachers, that kind of thing. Or care providers. So, those are things that I think we would want to get out there, that, that if you have that skill set, those other things like gender don't matter. So just being sensitive to kind of what is happening in your communities and your workplaces, industries, that kind of thing, education, and just having that united front that people are supported, and that you can do these things, so you're not scared and stay out of those industries or out of education in the first place.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. And Tom, did you want to take number 6?
Yeah, scroll back up just a second. So strategy number, just a little bit. Thank you. So strategy number 6, improve access to resources to assist disinvested communities. We spend a little bit of time trying to describe to ourselves which disinvested communities and maybe how those might be prioritized. And some of us landed on very, very remote communities as having the greatest degree of difficulty, and might be the initial focus and prioritization. I had brought up this question of access to healthy foods, but that might be within another strategy. So I think this turned more towards education, and in that regard, we talked a lot about leveraging larger programs in other areas that could be extended into these diverse and remote communities. One aspect of that, again, is access to the internet. Most of these services and programs are now have become internet-based. It's just the more efficient and effective way to communicate when you have to move expertise quickly from one location to another and share that. And so we removed broadband from the term as a term, because this is associated specifically with fiber optic implementation by both federal, state, and local governments. So we replaced that with internet connectivity, which then might provide us with an option to be able to promote and maybe even fund Starlink SIOP solutions that were outside the broadband solution, but still provides internet connectivity and is usually found in these very remote locations. So that's still something that we might be able to do, is provide high-speed internet, but just not through broadband programs. Okay, if you could scroll down just a little bit. I know we're out of time, so I just want to try to move forward quickly here. Oh, yeah, okay, good. So then not to be confused satellite with satellite, but satellite facilities now, talking about that. And there appears to be lots of experience and good outcomes from current implementations that we're looking at maybe enhancing those funding, increasing the funding on some of those things. And so there may be really good programs that just require a little more impetus and funding to broaden them. There was a little bit of a discussion about serving individual needs, like with laptops, bus fare, other transportation, to help these folks connect with the services, and then building relationships with certified businesses. And let's see, what else we talk about? Educational institutions restricted how much they can spend on this. Oh yeah, okay. So back to maybe assisting with financial benefits. I kind of promoted that we look at it from an ecosystem standpoint and invest highly in a broad range of things that can help larger groups of individuals. But that's not necessarily mutually exclusive to having a local team assess individual needs and provide those individuals with what they need to engage. And we touched on the benefit of libraries. We didn't have a lot of time to expand on that, but I don't know how many very remote distributed locations actually have libraries. But maybe they do, and that might be a central source or a central location for adding additional resources that could be explored. Open to anybody else's input on this.
No, that's great. I think we have some great discussions today, and this is certainly a working document. This has been shared with all of you, so all of you can go in and you can edit it if something else comes up as you're thinking about it. By all means, you can go in, and this is feedback that we will take to the Sierra Business Council team as we continue to refine those draft strategies and make sure that they are as strong and represent all the voices. So wonderful, great information, great information. I know we're out of time, so I want to end by just saying thank you very much. This is this is big. It's really, really big, and it's not there's no, it's just gonna keep going, right? This is not something, okay, we're gonna get this done, and in August it's all gonna be done and we all get to go back and not think about it. I just hope that we can continue to have these discussions, collaborations. All of you can network and inform your communities as you're out there in the field doing your work of what the benefits of the Sierra Jobs First is and how we can continue to leverage our existing programs, get more money and investments into our communities, and begin to start realizing this vision that we're all putting together here. So it's really wonderful to have everybody's voice involved. With that, I wish you all a wonderful rest of your week and excellent weekend. Stay cool out there. I am tuning in from Las Vegas, and I think it's already 102 degrees outside. I haven't been outside yet, but it looks pretty hot. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.